Good morning, class. Welcome to the physics online classes for class ninth. In the previous classes, we have read about the chapter gravitation and we have completed the chapter. So, here we are going through the revision for the first term portion. It was chapter 1 and chapter 2, that is motion, and the force of and laws of motion. So, we are taking the revision for the second chapter, that is force and the laws of motion first, then we will be seeing the first chapter, motion. So for the force and the laws of motion, in today's session we will be seeing what the force and what are the types of force. If we talk about force, in childhood, from time that of childhood, we used to say that force is just a push and the pull action, because we cannot understand that whether the force is there in the other actions or not. But force is a kind of action that is given by the external, right? So if we have to move any body, we have to put some force. So force is an external effect exerted by the body on that object. And if an object, we can see that the force is exerted by us only when we push or pull the object. To give the example, we used to see that whenever we open the door or close the door, some force is exerted on that door. So to open the door, we used to just pull it, and to close, we just used to push it. So the body moves and we apply a force, right? So here the example is given, like one is pushing the object and the other one is pulling the object. So force is used. But now we will be seeing that force is only not a push and pull action, but in various action, force is required and force is applied on the body. So on pushing, pulling, as well as lifting a body, we are exerting force on that object. And for pressing a body, then also we are just exerting force to kick a ball, to lift a ball, to stretch an object, to move an object, to fold an object, or to twist an object. Thus many actions are required force. So force is an external effect, is an acting word through which a body can move, or we have to find the values for the force, right? So according to the force is an external effort. It can be the action of lifting, pressing, moving a object is said to be the force. Here you can see that a person is lifting the weight, so it is also a force. So force is an external effort exerted by a body on the object. Okay, so force is only the effects which can produce the object on which the force is kept and make that body to move. And in other words, if we know the motion, then force is required to make a body to move or make a body to come in the rest position. So force is an external effect which can change the motion of the body or the state of rest of the body. And in the previous classes, that is in class 8th also, we have read that the type of the forces, that is muscular, right? You have remembered that there are mainly two types of forces, that is contact force and the non-contact force. Whenever we have to apply a force on any object, then it is said as the force, and we have to touch that object and we have to move. So on when we have used the force by touching an object, it is said to be the contact. And if the force is applied on body without the touch, so it is said to be non-contact force. In the contact, we know that the muscular force, that is the force used by our body, that is said to be the muscular, like to push, pull, or the lift an object. We have to touch that object and have to lift or have to move, so it is said to be muscular force. And the next one, after the muscular force, we know that the other contact force is frictional force, because when we used to walk, there is a resistance acting towards the opposite direction to the motion, and that is said to be friction. So friction is also acting when we come in the contact with that force. So they both are the contact. And we talk about the non-contact, then like a magnet, we don't have to need to touch that object along with the iron object, but in a distance also, it just exerts a force on that iron object and it come towards the magnet. So we can say that the magnet exerts the force on that object without contact or without touching. So force is the various action words used in our daily life. So what are the effects of forces? By contact or the non-contact, what it changes with the body. Force makes the body to move, right? So we can say that force makes our body move, or the stationary body to come in the motion, or our body moving can also be stopped. So force can make our body to come in the rest position from the motion. So body can be moved with the force or can be made to stop along with the force. And similarly, whenever our body move, so we can just change the speed of the moving body, right? We can make the change, the speed to be increased or speed to be decreased. We need a force. And similarly, we can change the direction, and by applying the pressure on any body, that is pressing the body is also a force, lifting a body is force, or stretching or twisting a body is also force. So by these forces we can just change the shape and the size of the body. So these are the effects which can be seen on the body due to the force. Here are the examples, some more, that on applying the force on any object we can change the direction also. Like if a moving ball can be stopped with the help of the force by applying it in the opposite direction, or a stop or the stationary body can also be start moving by applying the force on it. By twisting we can change the original shape and the size of the object. For example, spring, we can stretch it and again come back to the return to the same size. So we can say that we can change the size and the shape of the body. And by hitting any body we can change the direction of the body. So force changes the direction, speed, moving object make it state to rest or the state of motion. So just force tends a stationary body to stop or the stop a moving body. It can change the shape and the size of the body. It can change the speed of the body. So here we will be seeing the two types of forces, that is balanced and the unbalanced force. So balanced means the force which resultant force will be zero, that is any other forces acting on the body will be zero. Since force is a vector quantity, when the resultant will be zero, when the two forces acting on the body should be on the opposite direction, then only the value will be zero. Because if we are making a body by pushing it, think we are pushing a body, so we are acting on that body, the force will be in single direction. Now again the some other one is pulling that body in that direction itself. So pulling is a different direction. So object, the two forces acting will be, one is the pushing and the other one is pulling. Whether the object will move? No, because same equal and the opposite forces on the acting on the body, it makes the body stationary, it does not move. So this is the balanced force. So whenever the body, the forces acting will be equal but in the opposite direction, the resultant will be zero. So if the resultant of the forces is zero, then it is a balanced force. But this balanced force does not allow the body to move. So it makes the body to be in the stationary position. So the forces acting on the body is used to be zero. So the resultant of force will be zero. And if the resultant is zero, then the force is said to be balanced. This balanced force does not allow the body to move. And does not allow the body to remain stationary also. It just changes the size and the shape. So this balanced force just change the shape and the size of the body, but does not allow the body to move. And for this unbalanced force, similarly it can change the body shape as well as the motion also. The resultant will not be zero. So we can say that the force cannot be equal also and can be in the same direction also, right? So force of friction, like it always acts in the opposite direction, but if to move we use the force with some other value to just to cross out the friction. So friction can be cancelled only when the force is more than that of the friction, right? So there we are using an unbalanced force, so resultant cannot be zero. So to make a person move or to make an object to stop, we have to use the force of other value. So the force is not equal, right? So we can say that force is as an unbalanced force. So when an unbalanced force acts on the body, then the motion is produced. So we can say that the unbalanced force makes a body to move or to stop a moving body. Okay, and thank you class. In the next class we will be seeing the laws of motion also. Sorry if you have not understand and due to my voice also, but in the next class I will be explaining you more about the laws of motion.